Have you ever wondered why the people you care about the most often stay silent about the things that matter the most? It's one of the deepest human frustrations, standing close to someone yet feeling like there's an invisible wall between what is said and what is truly felt. And when it comes to women, this silence carries layers most men never learn to understand. You sense something is happening inside her, but she hides it behind calm expressions and careful words, hoping you'll notice what she struggles to reveal. You feel the distance, the hesitation, the emotional fog, yet you can't put your finger on the source. This confusion isn't a sign that you're failing, it's a sign that no one ever taught you how to hear what she never says out loud. Women carry emotions differently. They often express them in subtle gestures, quiet shifts or moments of withdrawal, not because they're trying to play games, but because vulnerability feels risky. Admitting what she truly needs, what she fears, or what she hopes for can feel like handing over a part of her heart without knowing how you'll hold it. She wants to be understood without having to explain every detail. She wants to feel safe without begging for security. She wants to be valued with. This isn't just about relationships. It's about becoming a man of presence, awareness, and strength. Someone who can navigate emotions with confidence instead of confusion. And when you learn how to read the truth she never says, you gain an advantage that transforms how you love, how you lead, and how you connect. Stay with this until the end, because what you discover here will change the way you see every silent moment, every distant look, and every unspoken feeling from this moment forward. What you need to understand now is that a woman's silence is rarely empty. It is full of emotions she has not yet found a safe place to release. She feels deeply, often more deeply than she shows, and that depth creates a pressure inside her that she tries to control. She doesn't want to burden you with fears she hasn't processed or insecurities she doesn't fully understand. She doesn't want to appear needy, clingy, or fragile, even when she's carrying emotional weight that tests her strength every single day. So she holds it in. She hides it behind confidence. She masks it with a calm face, and you standing right beside her may never realize the storm she is quietly managing within herself. She struggles to admit how much reassurance she needs, not because she is weak, but because she is proud. She wants to feel supported, yet she doesn't want that support to come at the cost of her dignity. She wants closeness, yet she fears being judged for wanting too much. These contradictions shape her silence, and if you misread them, you can easily mistake her need for connection as disinterest. What she truly wants is a man who can sense the truth behind her restraint, a man who understands that strength and vulnerability can exist at the same time. When you recognize this, you stop expecting her to communicate like you do. You start noticing the small cues, the shifts in her tone, the way her energy changes when something weighs on her heart. This awareness elevates your entire presence as a man. A woman's inner world is often shaped by experiences she rarely talks about. Past disappointments, broken trust, emotional letdowns that taught her to be cautious with her heart. She's not guarded because of you. She's guarded because life trained her to protect herself. And even though she wants to open up, something inside her tightens whenever she feels too exposed. That tension is not rejection, it's protection. When you understand that, you stop taking her hesitations personally. Instead, you become a safe space where she can slowly lower her walls without fear of being misunderstood. Your emotional steadiness becomes powerful here. It shows her that you're not just another moment in her life. You're someone capable of handling her truth without collapsing under the weight of it. She pays attention to how you respond when she's overwhelmed. She watches whether you remain calm or become reactive. She notices whether you listen or simply wait to speak. Your energy becomes a signal, and she feels it even when she doesn't acknowledge it out loud. When you offer patience instead of pressure, understanding instead of assumptions, you create a shift inside her that few men ever inspire, and this is where everything changes. When she feels seen without having to explain herself, her guard starts to soften. When she feels valued without having to fight for attention, her trust begins to rise. When she feels emotionally safe, she becomes more open, more expressive, more connected. This is the emotional reward most men never experience because they never learn to understand the unspoken. But you're learning it right now, and as you do, you unlock a deeper level of connection, strength, and emotional presence that reshapes how she responds to you. This understanding becomes your advantage. This awareness becomes your power. And this shift becomes the moment she feels something she rarely feels. truly understood. Respect is the one need she feels most intensely, yet it is the one she rarely puts into words. She doesn't want to ask for it because asking makes her feel like she's begging for something that should already be natural. She doesn't want to explain it because explaining makes her feel like you don't truly see her. She simply wants you to understand that respect is not a luxury for her. It is emotional oxygen. When she feels respected, she relaxes. When she feels valued, she opens. When she feels seen, she gives more of herself without hesitation. And when that respect disappears, even for a moment, she feels the emotional ground beneath her start to shake. She notices everything: the way you speak to her, the tone you use, the effort you show, the consistency behind your promises. Every small detail carries meaning for her, even if you don't realize it. This isn't because she's overly sensitive. It's because respect shapes her sense of safety. It tells her whether she can trust you, whether she can rely on you, whether she can let you into parts of her heart that she guards fiercely. When she senses that your actions match your words, her faith in you grows. When she sees you handle your responsibilities with integrity, she feels secure. When you show strength without cruelty and confidence without arrogance, she feels drawn to you on a deeper, almost instinctive level. A woman doesn't just look for love, she looks for alignment. She looks for a man whose behavior reflects strong character. She looks for emotional steadiness, not perfection. She looks for someone who respects himself, because a man who lacks self-respect cannot offer genuine respect to anyone else. She watches how you treat people who can do nothing for you. She observes how you carry yourself when no one is applauding. She pays attention to how you respond to stress, disappointment, and challenges. These moments reveal more to her than any romantic gesture ever could. When you carry yourself with purpose and self-respect, she feels safe leaning into your presence. When you stand firm in your values, she feels inspired to stand with you. Respect is not about dominance or control, it is about groundedness. It's about showing that your emotional center doesn't shift with every opinion or obstacle. A steady man gives her space to breathe. A focused man gives her space to grow. A principled man gives her space to trust, and trust is everything to her. Respect is also the language she uses to measure the future. She asks herself silently, can I rely on him? Can I follow him? Can I trust him with the parts of me I've never shown anyone? If the answer is yes, she invests without holding back. If the answer is no, she withdraws, not out of anger, but out of self-protection. Respect determines which path she chooses. This is why learning to respect her mind, her boundaries, her emotions, and her presence shifts everything. It elevates you. It strengthens the bond. It transforms the energy between you from uncertainty to trust. And when you embody this kind of respect, she feels something deeper than attraction. She feels security. She feels partnership. She feels possibility. She feels the future. And that is the moment she stops questioning you and starts believing in you. Strength to her is not about how loudly you speak or how forcefully you stand. It is about how steady you remain when life becomes difficult. She doesn't look for a man who dominates his environment to feel powerful. She looks for a man who can dominate his impulses, his emotions, and his reactions. That's the kind of strength that makes her feel safe. When you stay grounded while everything around you feels chaotic, she senses a stability she can trust. When you remain calm during tension, she feels protected. When you choose patience instead of anger, clarity instead of panic, responsibility instead of blame, she sees the depth of strength that reaches far beyond the surface. A woman studies how you carry yourself emotionally. She pays attention to how you handle disappointment, how you respond when things don't go your way, how you treat people when no advantage exists. She wants to know if your strength is real or if it disappears the moment pressure rises. Emotional strength is not loud and it's not aggressive. It's the quiet discipline that keeps you centered when everything around you tries to pull you off balance. It's the presence you bring into a room, the energy you hold within yourself, the way you keep your principles intact even when your feelings are tested. This is the strength she respects, the strength she trusts, the strength she feels drawn to without fully understanding why. She also needs to see that your strength is not a mask you wear to hide your wounds. Real strength is the ability to face your own flaws without running from them. It's the courage to grow instead of staying trapped in old patterns. It's the willingness to take accountability where many men make excuses. When she sees you challenging your own weaknesses, she sees a man capable of leading with integrity. When she sees you remain composed in the face of conflict, she feels secure. When she sees you hold yourself to a higher standard, she feels inspired to rise with you. This isn't about perfection. It's about direction. She doesn't expect you to be flawless, but she expects you to be moving forward. She wants a man whose strength creates emotional safety, not emotional tension. A man who lifts the energy around him instead of draining it. A man who speaks with intention, not impulse. A man who stands firm in truth even when silence would be easier. Your strength becomes a signal to her, one that tells her who you are, how you think, how you love, and how you will handle the future. When you show this kind of strength consistently, something powerful happens inside her. She starts to relax in your presence. She starts to trust your leadership. She starts to feel hope instead of fear. Your steadiness gives her permission to let go of the worry she carries alone. Your emotional balance becomes a refuge from the instability of the world. Your growth becomes the proof that you're not just passing time, you're building something meaningful. This is the strength she won't ask for openly, but deeply craves. It's the strength that says without words, you are safe here. And when a woman feels that kind of safety, she gives a level of loyalty, softness, connection, and devotion that only a grounded, emotionally strong man ever experiences. A woman will never openly admit it, but she constantly measures the emotional depth of the man she's dealing with, not to manipulate him, not to confuse him, but to understand whether he's capable of holding a meaningful connection without collapsing when things get uncomfortable. She pays attention to how you respond to silence, because silence reveals what impulsive reactions try to hide. She watches how you handle frustration, because frustration exposes a man's emotional discipline. She notices how you respond when she pulls back slightly, not because she wants distance, but because she wants to see if your presence is rooted in strength or insecurity. These moments might feel small to you, but to her, they paint a complete picture of who you truly are beneath the surface. A woman wants to feel that your emotions don't overpower your judgment. She wants to know that you can stay calm even when something triggers you. She wants to see that you have the ability to regulate your reactions instead of letting them control your behavior. Emotional depth is not measured by how much you say, but by how well you respond when you're tested. If you crumble under pressure, she loses confidence in the bond. If you become defensive or make everything about yourself, she begins to question your maturity. If you lash out or shut down, she starts to rethink the future. But when you stay composed and aware, even when emotions rise, she sees strength that draws her closer without hesitation. Your reaction to difficult moments tells her more than your best moments ever could. When you remain patient while working through tension, she feels your stability. When you choose understanding over assumptions, she feels your emotional intelligence. When you refuse to let ego guide your behavior, she feels your growth. These silent evaluations are not meant to challenge your pride. They are meant to protect her heart. She needs to know she is connecting with a man who won't abandon himself emotionally when things get hard. She needs to know she is building with someone who understands that relationships require awareness, not impulsiveness. She pays attention to how you communicate, not just when everything is peaceful, but especially when discomfort arises. She notices whether you listen fully or simply wait to defend your point. She sees whether you approach conflict with patience or with aggression. She feels whether your energy stays grounded or becomes unstable. And these observations determine how deeply she allows herself to trust. She won't admit it, but every emotional test she gives is rooted in one question: can this man handle my truth without making it unsafe for me to express it? When you respond with emotional steadiness, something profound shifts inside her. Her guard softens, her doubts fade, her trust grows. She begins to reveal parts of herself that she normally hides from the world. She starts to believe that she can express her fears, her insecurities, her desires, and her dreams without being judged or dismissed. This is the emotional intimacy most men desire but never reach, because they react instead of understanding. But when you show depth through patience, presence, and self-control, she sees you as different. She sees you as someone capable of creating emotional safety. She sees you as a man, not just a moment. Your depth becomes the doorway to her openness. Your steadiness becomes the foundation for her trust. Your emotional intelligence becomes the reason she chooses you over anyone else. And when you pass the test she never speaks about, you unlock a connection that only a grounded, emotionally aware man will ever experience. What she rarely voices is how deeply she values a man's ability to lead himself before trying to lead anyone else. She doesn't need control over you, and she doesn't want to dictate how you live your life. What she craves is witnessing a man who knows where he is going, who understands his purpose, who stands on a foundation built from his own discipline and self-respect. She watches how you move through the world, not because she wants to judge you, but because your direction tells her everything about the future she could have with you. A man without inner leadership creates uncertainty, but a man who leads himself creates stability she can depend on. She pays attention to your habits, not because she expects perfection, but because she wants to see consistency. She notices your ambitions, not because she wants to pressure you, but because she wants to feel inspired by the man standing beside her. She observes whether you follow through on what you say, because reliability is rare and incredibly attractive. When a man builds himself with intention, she feels a rise of respect that makes everything else fall into place. Attraction, trust, connection, desire. Self-leadership is the silent quality that makes her feel safe to choose you fully. A woman is drawn to a man with direction because it reveals something powerful about his character. It shows that he's not just drifting through life, hoping things will work out. It shows that he takes responsibility for his path, that he's willing to evolve, that he refuses to let life shape him passively. When she sees you working towards something meaningful, she sees a man who won't collapse under pressure or lose himself in excuses. She sees a man who can carry the weight of his own future, and that makes her feel confident enough to imagine one with you. She wants to feel like she can grow beside you, not shrink to make space for your insecurities. She wants to feel like your presence lifts her, not drains her. She wants to know that when challenges come, they always do, you won't abandon your principles or crumble under doubt. Leadership is not about controlling her, it's about controlling yourself. It's about showing that your emotional and mental strength are not temporary moods, but steady qualities she can trust. She feels a deep sense of admiration when she sees a man holding himself accountable. When you take responsibility for your actions, it shows maturity. When you admit your mistakes without defensiveness, it shows emotional honesty. When you stay focused on your vision, even when distractions pull at you, it shows discipline. And when you pursue growth with intention, it shows that you'll never settle for being less than the man you're capable of becoming. This inspires her in ways she rarely communicates, because admiration is something she feels, not something she declares. Self-led men create an emotional environment that feels secure, uplifting, and stable. Their presence calms her anxiety. Their energy strengthens her confidence. Their drive awakens her own ambition. When she sees you leading yourself, she feels proud to stand beside you. And this pride transforms the connection. It deepens her loyalty. It softens her heart. It brings out her femininity in ways she doesn't express with men who lack direction. A self-led man doesn't demand respect, he earns it. He doesn't chase validation, he radiates strength. He doesn't seek permission to be who he is, he becomes it. And when she feels this kind of masculine intention in your presence, she understands something she'll never say out loud. This is the kind of man she can trust with her love, her vulnerability, her devotion, and her future. Every time you rise above the noise of your doubts, you strengthen the part of you that refuses to be defeated. That strength becomes a quiet force, shaping your decisions, sharpening your awareness, and pulling you toward a version of yourself that no longer negotiates with fear. You begin to notice how the mind tries to drag you back into all corners, whispering familiar excuses, replaying familiar patterns. But each time you choose clarity over confusion and intention over impulse, you reclaim another territory within yourself that once felt unreachable. You start to feel the shift, not as a sudden explosion, but as a steady internal reorganization where your values take priority over temporary emotions. There comes a moment when you recognize that most of the limits you once believed in were never real. They were simply emotional habits disguised as truth. And when you challenge them, when you refuse to accept them as part of your identity, you create space for a new internal dialogue to emerge. This dialogue speaks with the voice of someone who is no longer intimidated by growth, who is no longer afraid of being misunderstood, who is no longer dependent on external validation to feel grounded. This voice becomes your anchor, especially in the moments when life tests your patience and your persistence. As your inner world strengthens, the way you respond to pressure begins to transform. Instead of reacting from impulse, you respond from presence. Instead of shrinking under the weight of expectations, you rise with a sense of personal truth that cannot be negotiated. You begin to understand that your emotions are not obstacles, they are signals, they are feedback. And when you listen without judgment, they reveal exactly where your healing, your discipline, and your growth must deepen. This is where transformation takes root. Not in the loud declarations you make on your best days, but in the quiet choices you make when no one is watching, choosing discipline when comfort calls, choosing honesty when denial feels easier, choosing self-respect when old patterns try to pull you back into versions of yourself that no longer fit. These choices accumulate, shaping your identity more than any external recognition ever could. You start to realize that you don't need to force your evolution, you just need to stop interrupting it. When you stop clinging to what hurts, when you stop negotiating with what drains you, when you stop excusing what keeps you from your potential, the path forward becomes clearer. Not because the obstacles disappear, but because your mind becomes strong enough to navigate through them without collapsing into self-doubt. Every boundary you set becomes a declaration that your energy is sacred. Every moment of silence you choose becomes an act of reclaiming your clarity. Every instance where you choose patience over panic becomes proof that you are no longer ruled by the impulses that once controlled your life. You evolve not by force, but by alignment. By choosing what reinforces your peace, your power, and your purpose. And the more aligned you become, the more you attract experiences that reflect that alignment. Not because life suddenly becomes easier, but because you become harder to shake. You become clearer in your intentions, stronger in your choices, and braver in your commitment to yourself. Your inner world becomes a foundation no disappointment can collapse, no obstacle can destroy, no criticism can weaken. This is the moment where inner transformation stops being a possibility and becomes your reality.